Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome in the Vikings Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Patrick Siepman, and coming up on today's show, did Kwesi Adofo-Mensah do it again? We're going to be talking about the Vikings 2025 UDFA draft class. As the last couple of years, we got an Ivan Pace, we got a Gabe Murphy, some key contributors to this Vikings final 53-man roster out of the UDFA class. So did he do it again? We'll break down 9 guys here in a second. But speaking about this season, and I've been seeing a lot of chatter from Packers fans on Twitter, but it seems like they forget that the Vikings swept them last football season. So if you guys want the Vikes to sweep the Packers again this year, hit that thumbs up icon. I'll tell you what, that week, was it 17 game before the Lions game? That was one of the best moments where Darnold threw for 373. Vikings players were hoisting him up in the locker room after. It was awesome. So if you guys want the Vikes to sweep the Packers again, hit that thumbs up icon. All right, so I was looking at the UDFA class, and the Vikings signed a total of 20 guys, but I want to zero in here on 9 UDFAs who legitimately have a chance to make the roster. Now, obviously, they're fighting an uphill battle. The Vikings have a loaded team, so it would just be hard in general for one of these guys to make the roster. But let's start off here with an edge rusher out of BYU, Tyler Batty. Now, a little shocked that he actually went undrafted here. I thought obviously his upside is not extreme compared to other guys at the edge rusher position, but he was very productive at BYU, and he's also just one of those guys where, you know, even though his ceiling's not as high, his floor is extremely, extremely high. But in 53 games played for the Cougars, 122 tackles, 16.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 34 tackles for loss, and 2 PBUs. But I was diving into a couple of scouting reports on him, and I consolidated just the general consensus on Baddy as a prospect. So number one pro. Every single, website I was looking at, even just the tape for Baddy, just shows that he is a high motor. He takes no plays off, a con for him, he doesn't have a NFL level twitch, more of a college level twitch, which allowed him to dominate at that level. But can that replicate to the NFL level? Who knows? But he is an elite processor, especially when teams are running triple options, zone read looks like he is always sniffing that play out, but he does struggle versus bigger defensive linemen, but he does throw his hands in a very violent way, which is something that a lot of scouts look at in terms of translating to the NFL level. Now, maintaining gaps also an issue, but he can play in multiple different schemes. He did that at BYU, and just overall his technique, another con here, could use some improvement. Now, in terms of Baddy making the roster, I doubt he will make it, considering how deep the Vikings are at the edge position. Like, you obviously got Gernard, Van Ginkel, but then you got like a guy like Dallas Turner behind him. Then you got even a guy like Gabe Murphy sitting there. And then at the defensive tackle position, the Vikings are probably going to keep 5-6 guys. Are you going to keep a total of like 12 defensive linemen? I don't necessarily think so. And also, you think about a guy like Tyrion Ingram Dawkins, who they drafted in the 5th round. He's assuring to make the roster over a guy like Tyler Batty. So he's an intriguing guy. Will probably be a practice player for the Vikings, but definitely a UDFA where I think the Vikings may have found a hidden gem at that spot. But let's dive into another one here. Zamia Vaughn, cornerback out of Utah. 6'3" corner, super massive size. He's got super long arms as well. And anytime I see a 6'3" corner, long arms, also physical, impressed man, I immediately think of a guy like Xavier Rhodes, Vikings legend. But obviously he does not have the tape that Rhodes did when he was coming out. But just in terms of physical attributes, does kind of remind me of him just a little bit. Maybe not as strong as Xavier Rhodes, as he only comes in at 186 pounds here. But his RAS score, he's a very good athlete. Ran a 4.45 40-yard dash. Pretty good there. Had a good broad. Had a good vertical leap at almost 40 inches. And his total RAS score came out to 8.47. But he's going to probably be competing with a guy like Jeff Okudah to make the roster. Dwight McLeodern, a UDFA from last year. So it'll probably be a 3-man battle for that last spot, but I could definitely see him making the roster here. And then how about a running back? Trey Stewart of Jacksonville State here. His production was absolutely ridiculous, and he's got home run speed in his game, at least on the tape. Now, his 40-yard dash, he only ran at 4.5, which was a little lower than a lot of people expected, and he is a smaller running back. I mean, he's 5'8", 182 pounds. He only did 12 reps on bench, so, he's definitely a guy where the RAS score is not going to blow you away. I mean, 2.24, a whole lot of red on the screen, but just check out his production at Jacksonville State this past season. I mean, 278 carries, so a lot of carries on his feet, but ran for over 1,600 yards, 5.9 yards per carry, and he found the end zone 25 times in 13 games played. Now, I think he's probably going to have to battle it out with a guy like Ty Chandler. Now, Ty Chandler, he returned kicks for the Vikings last season. I almost think it's as simple as that, where it's like if they view Trey Stewart as better kick returner than Ty Chandler, he'll probably make the roster as well. But how about another kick returner here that the Vikings picked up? Silas Bolden out of Texas. This guy is an absolute burner. I was super excited the Vikings picked him up, even though he didn't have, the best reputation amongst Texas fans. This past season, I just expected more out of him. But Silas Bolden's chance to make the roster, it will be as a kick returner. Like, I don't think he's going to crack that wide receiver room, even if the Vikings decide to keep 6-7 guys. I just think a guy like Tristan Jackson would, get that last spot over a guy like Silas Bolden. But if they view him as an elite special teams guy, a weapon with the football in his hands, maybe he ends up being the kick returner for the Vikes. But probably the best UDFA on this list. He was a top 100 prospect according to many NFL draft analysts. Logan Brown, offensive tackle out of Kansas. Now, we broke down some of his numbers in a previous show, so we'll fly through these here. But, Josh Connerly, first-round pick this past season. Logan Brown had the same pass block win rate as him. How about another top 10 pick? In terms of the PFF run blocking grade, Calvin Banks Jr., who went number 9 overall to the New Orleans Saints, well, he had him edged out in the run blocking department, according to PFF. And then also pressure rate allowed on passing downs. Logan Brown, 2.4%. Armand Membu, 2.2%. So, listen, the RAS score, he's an athlete. He had good production. I'm shocked he went undrafted considering how much of a dire need the offensive tackle position is in the NFL, but maybe he could end up being the swing tackle with Justin School this year, but I fully expect Logan Brown to make the final 53-man roster. But I'll ask you guys this. Over-under, 1.5 UDFAs will make the Vikings final 53-man roster. Give me an O for over or give me a U for under. I'm going to probably go 2 on the dots here, so I'll take the over on this one, but you guys get your predictions down below in the comment section. Over under 1.5 UDFAs will make the Vikings roster. Now we'll dive into 4 more UDFAs here in a second. But first, if you guys want to get a J.J. McCarthy jersey today, hit that link, chatsports.com/Vikings jersey. The number 9 jersey is going to be hot in US Bank Stadium this year. I can't wait to rock them during the watch parties during the season. So if you guys want to get one as well, hit that link, chatsports.com/Vikings jersey. All right, let's dive into 4 more here to close out today's show. We're going to start off with a Wisconsin offensive guard, offensive tackle, can play multiple positions. Joe Huber here. Again, shocked that he went undrafted. This was a guy who, had a high draft grade on him. But the thing I love most about Huber is just his versatility. Now, here's his snap alignments when he was at Wisconsin. He played 854 snaps at right tackle, 825 at left guard, and 796 at the right guard position. So this guy can play multiple positions. Wouldn't be shocked if he could kick out, play some left tackle. He could pop even more inside and play some center at that spot. But a very intelligent offensive lineman. And I think this is a guy, I think honestly Logan Brown and Joe Huber have a very good chance to make this roster. Vikings aren't that deep in terms of their offensive line right now. Top-end talent, no doubt, but definitely do lack some depth. So watch out for Joe Huber making the team. Now, here's my dark horse here. Austin Keys, Alabama linebacker. When you throw on this guy's tape, he flies around the football field. And he also has good size to him. 6'2", 250 pounds. At least that's what he played at Auburn. He did come in at 228 pounds at the combine, but I think that was him trying to drop weight to improve his 40 time, which, ended up being the right call as he did end up running a 4.63 40-yard dash. But he also had a wicked vertical leap, wicked broad jump, pretty solid in the bench too. But, 6'2", 228 pounds. I think he's got a chance to maybe crack this roster. Maybe it'll come down to him and a guy like Brian Asamoah for that 4th linebacker spot. I'm assuming the Vikings won't keep 5, but keep your eyes out on Austin Keys during preseason and during training camp. But how about a wide receiver here from Indiana? Actually started off his collegiate career at Texas Tech for 4 years, transferred to Indiana during his 5th year. Miles Price, first off, great name for the wide receiver position. Now, the production is not extreme. He's a small wide receiver. I think he comes in about 5'8", but he does have some kick return ability, and I think we're seeing a trend here as, the NFL changing their kickoff rules. There's going to be a lot more returns this season. The Vikings are trying to take advantage of that, and if they view Miles Price as the best kick returner, maybe they decide to keep him as a 6th wide receiver because, also, I know we were all massive fan of the Rondell Moore pickup, but let's just say the Vikings get Rondale Moore in training camp. They see him in the preseason. They don't see a lot from him in terms of kick return and punt return ability. I think that would leave the door open for a guy like Miles Price, a guy like Silas Bolden to come in, take that spot. So watch out for the former Indiana receiver just to potentially make the 53-man roster. Is a bit of a shocker here. But how about another tight end? And I think he's got a good chance to make the team. I think it's going to come down to him and Gavin Bartholomew, who the Vikings took in the 6th round. But it's Ben Urik, tight end, was at Georgia this past season, but he was at Stanford the year before. But his RAS score pretty solid. He's a good athlete, 6'4", 245 pounds at typical tight end height and weight there. But his 40-yard dash was a 4.84, total RAS score 8.01. This guy, he's just solid, solid hands. I don't know if this guy has a ton of potential in terms of him being like a true like top 15 tight end in the league, but I think he could be a solid backup at some point in his career. And maybe at the Vikings, if they get these guys in training camp, they like him a little more than a guy like Bartholomew, maybe he ends up making the team. But I ask you guys this: who is your favorite UDFA on the Vikings? Let me know down below in the comment section, and we'll see you guys next time. SKOL Vikes.